For the regular IHP video tune-ins, I know I left you hanging with a story. And it wasn't a story. I was presenting to you something Tara Brock pointed out. She's a PhD. She is a beautiful therapist, if I'm not mistaken. That's her title. Mindfulness relationships, mindfulness in therapy. You can find her online. She has beautiful meditations, one of which I've shared as well, because she helps people. This is Daniel Siegel's hand model of the brain to navigate the ocean of the limbic system. So on that note, look her up. Tara is the name. Brock, Brach, is the last name. Again, you'll find her immediately on YouTube. Lots of beautiful free content. So I was taking a course. It was a summit. So it was kind of a course, the ones that have been, even though it's a summit, online summit. And it was about how during the pandemic, you would have thought that we would have been nicer to each other. But this is where, because of our mistrust coming up due to being in a survival mode, because when we're all human beings in our fight flight, which is what we were all in until you would, work with yourself, and or a 5D mystic or functional adult will not be against humanity. So we don't be like, oh, humans are parasites, the pandemic is a conspiracy. None of this has happened. For a 5D mystic, on that note, I have shared in different episodes aspects, which I will not be doing right now. However, what I can tell you is 4D definitely is not embracing the richness of the ability that they could hold with their clairs, because the moment that fear arises is the moment that they're being given the opportunity to learn emotion regulation skills with their nervous system. So yoga helps because it's a ventral vagal portfolio of nervous system exercises. And you sit in silence, which means you start to learn to use your cortex, which means that your hand goes from alert, 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 because the amygdala will be alerted when something is going in a way we are not sure. And the right mode of our brain deals with unknown, uncertainty, and unwanted, the sensations that arise from your nervous system. And your left is just a chit chatter. So as long as you're not friends, and the people who are adaptive children, they have unresolved trauma, so they're not friends with their emotional body. And 4D is not friends with their self because they don't trust humanity. They don't trust themselves. The fear is what takes over. Clairs don't help to make it better or worse. But just to give an example, for the 5D collective, we don't perceive fear in a way of, oh my gosh, again, humans are parasites, evil, and conspiracies all over the place. We actually understand what is called there's change happening and people are reactive. So Tara Brock in this summit, she talks about mistrust is automatic, chaos triggers move into primitive mind because of survival. Because when your brain is not locked in and loaded, you're not using your prefrontal cortex, which means you're in survival. You're only hearing whatever it is you want. Your seat of empathy is turned off. In fact, when you're in a conversation with a person, those who live based on group mindsets, and they don't even know half of how they're leading because they don't pay attention to easing their emotional body. Like literally, people will be in the low self-esteem, indirect communication, passive aggressive, manipulation. We all do it, but the ones who have codependent type relationships. And so here's where they do trauma bonding. And what we've seen with the twin flame community is that they're basically anxious and avoidant. And I've reviewed that with you all thanks to attachment coaches that are supporting people to say, okay, we all have different attachment styles. No need to be so dramatic about it. And with yourself, if you know enough, you can work with somebody because you're not picking to hang out with people based on, oh, only if you are secure attachment, I'm going to hang out with you. By the way, you'll know secure attachment when you see it, because that's where people stay locked in and loaded, which is our 5D collective. The 5D collective, with or without trauma-informed anything, with or without knowing about nervous system. I was a teenager, I began working on how to handle myself since, I'm going to grow up. So emotion regulation skills, people don't put it into practice. You can do all the yoga you want. If you don't understand what you're working, which most people don't, there's spiritual bypassers. So they flaunt the little mantles and think because they're doing yoga that they are better than somebody else. And here's your 4D collective with clairs. I'm special, without realizing that their codependent type behavior, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to take care of the world. I'm going to come in and make everything. So there's martyrs, superiors, and then there's self-blame. None of these have healthy self-worth yet. Healthy self-worth is I knew I'm not superior. I ain't inferior. In fact, let me use our lovely Sadhguru. To love, to believe, to respect yourself. You need two people, he says. If you have come to think of it was a whole talk. Somebody asked him a question about respect. It's like, you need to respect yourself. Do you not know how to respect yourself? So Sadhguru is a spirituality leader. He's not going to talk about the ego. Here's where I'm going to come in and say, yes, your attachment system is yours, which is why if you don't learn through your relationships, your oversoul for my mystics, and or just your relationships for functional adults, how to move into, I'm going to be in my green. I'm going to let my prefrontal cortex and sit in compassion, which means my insula lights up. My amygdala is alerted, alert, but I am scouting and there's no weapon in anybody's hand. I'm just dealing with a person. I do the temporal junction so I can relate to whatever's happening based on my past. And I move into my prefrontal responding, meaning, what am I handling here? Not to mention we do mindfulness, mindsight, all in one go. Thank you, Daniel Siegel. We don't need to be told about integration of the brain, but let me spell it out. Secure attachment people, that's my 5D collective, or anybody who wants to move in it, versus B, the movies that are actually using not only maladaptive safety behavior trauma responses, sex, drugs, food, alcohol as compulsive activities, which lead people down various loops. And unfortunately, neuroplasticity agent is imagination. And when you're ruminating, you're in a biochemistry of fear. You're in a survival mode. So while the secure attachment knows inner well-being, it's also here. The insecure attachment, so avoidant, will ruminate. And they'll think about heroes and villains, and they will save damsels and, princes and all that. But they actually just live in the mind, because when it comes to taking action, they're so overwhelmed unless you got a person who recognizes, wait, I can regulate my emotions. I know what overwhelm means. It means I'm afraid to be vulnerable with another person. Nobody grew out of their teenage years for the standard. For the ones who have childhood trauma, they're getting good therapy, thank goodness. As Patrick Tiahan points out, a person who hurts a person, hurt people, that's not where we stop. Hurt people who hurt people can know, they can do work, they can find free YouTube content, the good stuff, not the ones who tell you to ignore the emotions, but the one who explain to you your 2-year-old isn't going anywhere. It's your nervous system. It ain't just your 2-year-old. So as long as you don't care about how you're approaching as a grown-up conversations, you want to yell in the bathroom, I'm going to go beat up Bill. This example Patrick Tiahan gave, you're going to be an adaptive child who's going to have low self-esteem. You don't know how to handle yourself as an adult, and your emotions are all pent up in here. And you're going to look like a big balloon to some of us, but we're going to be nice about it, because here's what a person with their prefrontal cortex locked in and loaded sees when you have no weapon, but you're nasty. Person who's really upset does not know how to handle their nervous system and their embodied brain. So I know that I'm dealing with a person, not a devil, not a demon, not an evil, not any of that. And even if, lo and behold, revenge becomes something that is part of a person's imagination land, so I'm going to go out and get people. You know what's the worst thing they do? Because, movies are movies for a reason. Otherwise, they end up in prison. So people who actually lose it, they end up in prison because they lose it. It's called low emotional intelligence. It's also called a person who's alert, and just, out of it. So again, the lovely psychoeducators, plenty of room for people to understand why we do what we do. And back to Sadhguru, unless I don't want to get you his message. He says, the world respecting you is quality of the world around you. If they are that kind, they will respect you. You respecting yourself, he says, is a bit crazy. He says respect is between two people, that you respect somebody for who they are. Me and my ego, me and my soul, and your body. And he goes on to say, there's no need for me to respect myself. It is my quality to respect someone. So not what they do, and you don't look up and you don't look down. It's just how you want to be in the world. And here, Terry Real, healthy self-worth. It's about, I'm not superior, I'm not inferior. And also, it's not about what other people say. It's about you. And you shouldn't feel ashamed about something you've done. And when people hide that they've done something where they've hurt somebody, that's called, they're going to hide it. They're not going to actually resolve it, the psychoeducators again. So your consciousness is clear when you're able to sit in your heart body, your value body, physical, mental, and emotional, but it's with a locked in and loaded mind that can evaluate with equanimity, likes, dislikes. I'm a person, imperfections. None of us are greatest mistakes. We're all human beings who can, make mistakes. Talking directly is very easy because of love and respect, secure attachment. And when we meet insecure attachment, that doesn't change. So share love.